Your eyes open in the darkness, and there they are, occupying your mind like they never left. Maybe they walked away months ago, maybe years. Maybe they were never yours to begin with, but none of that matters, doesn't it? You've tried everything. Unfriended them, blocked their number, deleted every photo, started dating someone new, thrown yourself into work, into exercise, into anything that might fill the space they left behind. But here's the thing, they're still there. Living rent-free in your mind, showing up uninvited in your thoughts when you're trying to focus, appearing in your dreams when you finally fall asleep, coloring every new connection with their shadow. You tell yourself you're being ridiculous, that you should be over this by now, that strong people don't get stuck like this. But the thoughts keep coming, don't they? Like waves that never stop hitting the shore. What if I told you this isn't about being weak? What if I told you that Buddhism discovered exactly why this happens over 2,500 years ago? And more importantly, what if there's a specific path to freedom that actually works? Today, I'm sharing a story that will change how you see everything. A story about why someone gets stuck in your mind and how to finally, truly let them go. For over 2,500 years, Buddhism has been studying something most of us ignore: the nature of our own minds. While we're busy trying to change the world outside, Buddhist masters have been mapping the world inside. And what they discovered about attachment and obsessive thinking is profound. In Zen Buddhism, there's a concept called Shinenaiba, literally mind monkey, thought horse. Picture this: your mind is like a restless monkey jumping from branch to branch, never still. And your thoughts, they're like wild horses, galloping wherever they please. Sound familiar? The Buddha himself experienced this. Before his enlightenment, he too was tormented by thoughts he couldn't control, memories of his palace life, images of what he'd left behind, the pull of desires he thought he'd conquered. The difference? He found the way out. Here's what Buddhism teaches: when someone is stuck in your mind, it's never actually about them. Never. It's about two specific things happening inside you, two causes that create this mental prison. And once you understand these two causes, really understand them, the prison doors open by themselves. This isn't philosophy. This isn't theory. This is practical wisdom that has freed millions of minds across centuries. And surprisingly, modern science is just now catching up to what these ancient masters knew all along. What's fascinating is that modern psychology is finally validating what Zen masters discovered centuries ago. Psychologists call it rumination, that endless loop of thoughts about someone that you can't shut off. They've hooked people up to brain scanners and discovered something shocking. Thinking about someone who's stuck in your mind activates the same neural pathways as addiction. The same exact pathways. Your brain literally gets addicted to thinking about them. Each thought releases a tiny hit of dopamine, followed by cortisol, pleasure, then pain, pleasure, then pain. You're not weak, you're neurologically hooked. But here's where Buddhism goes deeper than psychology. There's an old Zen story. A monkey grabs a banana inside a narrow-necked jar. To free itself, all it needs to do is let go of the banana, but it won't. It screams, struggles, exhausts itself, all while freedom is just one simple action away: letting go. Ask yourself right now, how many times did you think about that person yesterday? 10 times? 20? 50? Buddhist masters would call this the second arrow. The first arrow is pain, they left, they hurt you, they chose someone else. That's life. But the second arrow, that's all the times you replay it in your mind. And here's the thing, you're the one shooting the second arrow. Over and over and over. The good news, if you're the archer, you can put down the bow. But first, you need to understand why you picked it up in the first place. Let me show you through a story about a tea master who discovered these truths the hard way. Picture a small tea house at the edge of a mountain road. Not the tourist kind with fancy decorations and Instagram-worthy corners. This was different, just 4 wooden walls, a low ceiling, and silence so deep you could hear your own heartbeat. The owner was a man who'd run this place for years. Every morning at 5 a.m., he'd light the charcoal. Every evening at 9 p.m., he'd close the wooden shutters. In between, hundreds of travelers would pass through, monks heading to temples, merchants going to market, lovers meeting in secret, families on pilgrimage. He had one unusual trait. He forgot faces the moment people walked out his door. Not from old age or poor memory, this was intentional, a practice. He called it the art of letting each moment pass like clouds. His philosophy was simple. Each customer is like a season. They arrive, they change the atmosphere for a moment, then they leave. To hold on to them would be like trying to hold on to spring in the middle of summer, foolish and painful. For years, this worked perfectly. He'd served tea to maybe 50,000 people, remembered none of them. His mind was clean as mountain water, still as the morning before birds wake. But life has a way of testing our philosophies, doesn't it? Of sending exactly the right person at exactly the right moment to shatter everything we think we know about ourselves. For this tea master, that moment came on September 15th at exactly 5 p.m. as storm clouds gathered over the mountain. The air was thick with the promise of rain. The tea master was cleaning cups, going through the same motions he'd done 10,000 times before. Then the door slid open. The moment she stepped across the threshold, something shifted. Time didn't just slow down, it seemed to hold its breath. He heard every single footstep on the wooden floor, noticed how dust particles danced in the last rays of sunlight, felt the temperature drop by exactly 2 degrees. His hands began to tremble. For the first time in years of pouring tea, his hands shook. He couldn't tell you what she wore, couldn't describe her face if his life depended on it. But he could tell you exactly how the air moved when she sat down, how the silence between them felt alive, electric, like the moment before lightning strikes. He poured the tea. Water overflowed onto the saucer. "I'm sorry," he stammered. I've never," she smiled just slightly. "No need to apologize. Some days are meant to overflow." They sat in silence for exactly 10 minutes. Not the comfortable silence he'd cultivated for decades. This was different. It was like they were having a conversation in a language he didn't know he spoke. Every breath meant something. Every shift in posture was a word. The way she lifted the cup, a complete sentence. Then she stood up, looked directly into his eyes, really looked, like she could see through all the years of carefully constructed emptiness, and asked, "Have you ever wondered why we remember some people forever, even if we meet them just once, while others fade the moment they leave?" His mouth opened. No words came out. For a man who'd perfected the art of forgetting, the question was like a key turning in a lock he didn't know existed. She placed money on the table, 10 times the price of tea. Then walked out into the rain that had just begun to fall. He ran to the door, but she was gone, vanished like she'd never existed at all. Only the coin on the table and the cup with her lipstick mark proved she'd been real. That night, for the first time in years, the tea master couldn't sleep. The question echoed in his mind, why do we remember some people forever? Little did he know he was about to live the answer. That first night was hell. The tea master lay on his thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, replaying those 10 minutes over and over. Her question haunted him, why do we remember some people forever? By dawn, he'd made a decision that shocked him. He closed the tea house. For the first time in years, the wooden shutters stayed shut. The charcoal remained unlit. The mountain road had lost its sanctuary. He wandered through the town like a man possessed, searching for her. Asked every shopkeeper, every innkeeper, every person he met, "Did you see a woman yesterday evening? She came to my tea house." But their responses chilled him to the bone. "What woman? We didn't see anyone unusual." "Are you feeling all right, old man? Perhaps you dreamed it." He rushed back to the tea house. There's the cup with her lipstick mark, the coins on the table. She was real. She had to be real. Week 1, he kept the tea house open from dawn to midnight, convinced she'd return. Every time the door opened, his heart raced. Every time it wasn't her, something inside him cracked a little more. Week 2. He began sketching her from memory, but something strange happened. He couldn't capture her face. He remembered the feeling of her presence, the weight of her question, the way air moved around her, but her actual features, gone. Like trying to hold water in his hands. Month 1, the realization hit him like a physical blow. He was thinking about her every waking moment, while preparing tea, while eating, while walking. Even while serving other customers, part of his mind was with her. The man who'd perfected the art of forgetting couldn't stop remembering someone he'd known for 10 minutes. Month 3, he was falling apart. His hands shook constantly now. He'd pour tea and see her lipstick mark on every cup. He'd hear her question in the wind, in the rain, in the silence between heartbeats. This is madness, he told himself. I've lost my mind over a ghost. But ghosts don't leave lipstick marks. Ghosts don't make your hands shake after years of steady pouring. Ghosts don't ask questions that unravel everything you thought you knew about yourself. Finally, desperate and nearly broken, he made a decision he'd avoided for decades. He would climb the mountain. He would find the old Zen master, the teacher he'd run from years ago, because now he had his own question. Why can't I forget someone I barely knew? The path up the mountain was treacherous, not because of the terrain, though the stones were slippery with moss and the trail barely visible. No, it was treacherous because with each step, the tea master was walking backward through time. Years ago, he'd run down this same path, away from the monastery, away from the old master's penetrating questions, away from truths he wasn't ready to face. Now he was climbing back up, carrying decades of carefully maintained emptiness that suddenly felt unbearably heavy. The higher he climbed, the more memories surfaced. Why had he run? What was he so afraid of back then? The answer came like a slap. He'd been afraid of feeling. The old master had tried to teach him that emptiness wasn't about feeling nothing, it was about feeling everything without attachment. But young and hurt, he'd chosen numbness instead. Halfway up the mountain, he had to stop. His legs weren't tired, his soul was. because he realized something terrifying. That woman's question wasn't really about her at all. It was about why he'd spent years making sure he'd never remember anyone. As the monastery came into view, perched like a bird's nest between two peaks, his heart pounded. Would the old master still be alive? Would he remember the student who ran away? Would he have answers for questions the tea master couldn't even properly form? The sun was setting when he reached the wooden gates. They creaked open before he could knock. And there, as if he'd been waiting all along, stood the old master. Now 95, bent like a question mark, but his eyes were still sharp as mountain wind. Ah, the old master smiled. I wondered when she would finally send you back to me. The old master led him to the same meditation hall where the tea master had fled from truth. Nothing had changed, the same worn cushions, the same stick of incense measuring time, the same window framing the endless sky. Tell me about her, the master said simply. The tea master poured out everything, the trembling hands, the overflowing water, the question that haunted him, the obsessive thoughts that wouldn't stop. When he finished, the master asked one question. When you think of her, what exactly do you see? I see her sitting there, drinking tea, asking that question. Stop. The master's voice cut through like a blade. Close your eyes. Look again. Look honestly. What do you really see? The tea master closed his eyes, looked deeper, and then, like a thunderbolt, he saw it. I see myself, but not myself as I am. I see myself laughing, talking, being interesting. I see myself telling her about my life, my thoughts, my dreams. I see myself being alive, really alive, the way I haven't been in years. Continue. I see myself asking her to stay. I see her saying yes. I see us having conversations every evening. I see myself becoming someone who matters to someone. I see. His voice broke. I see a version of myself I killed years ago. The master nodded slowly. This is the first cause. You're not attached to her, you're attached to a self that never existed. A self you imagine you could have become in her presence. A ghost of possibility, but it felt so real. All illusions feel real. That's what makes them illusions. Tell me in all your fantasies about her, who is the main character, her or you? The truth hit like cold water. In every imagined scene, every created conversation, every fantasy of what could have been, he was the star. She was just a mirror reflecting back the self he wished he could be. This is what Buddhism calls self-grasping, creating an idealized self, and then suffering because reality doesn't match. You've spent 3 months torturing yourself, not over losing her, but over losing a you that never existed in the first place. The tea master felt something crack inside him. Years of careful emptiness, shattered by 10 minutes with a stranger, but the master wasn't finished. Now he said, picking up his teacup, let's talk about why she appeared in your life at this exact moment. Because nothing in this universe happens by accident. The master stood up and drew 5 circles on the dusty floor with his walking stick. In my 70 years of teaching, I've seen thousands of people trapped by thoughts of someone. They all think their situation is unique, but in truth, there are only 5 false selves that keep us imprisoned. Let me show you which one has captured you. The first circle, the idealized self. This is the most common trap. You create a perfect version of yourself that only exists around them. With her, you imagine you're funnier, smarter, more profound. You believe you'd finally become the person you were meant to be. But tell me, why do you need someone else to become yourself? The tea master shifted uncomfortably. He saw himself in her presence, witty, engaging, the kind of person who had interesting stories. Not the silent man who'd poured tea mechanically for decades. The second circle, the savior self. Some people create a false self that will rescue or fix the other person. They imagine themselves as the hero in someone else's story. If only I could help them heal. If only I could show them real love. But this is ego disguised as compassion. Real love doesn't need to fix anyone. But I didn't want to save her, the tea master protested. Didn't you? Weren't you imagining showing her the depth of your tea ceremony, the wisdom of your solitude? Weren't you picturing her being impressed by your dedication? Silence. The third circle, the victim self. This false self thrives on the story of loss. Poor me abandoned again. I'm destined to be alone. Everyone I care about leaves. This self actually enjoys the pain because it confirms its identity. It would rather suffer than change. The master's eyes pierced through him. Years ago, someone left you, and you've been playing the victim ever since, hiding in your tea house, afraid to feel again. The fourth circle, the nostalgic self. This false self lives in an imagined past. It creates elaborate memories that never happened, conversations that were never spoken. It prefers the safety of fantasy to the risk of reality. Tell me, how many conversations have you had with her in your mind? Hundreds, the tea master whispered. And how many in reality? None. We sat in silence. Yet the imagined conversations feel more real than the actual silence, don't they? The fifth circle. The future self. The master drew this circle larger than the others. This is your primary prison. The future self lives entirely in what could be. It creates elaborate scenarios of potential happiness, always just out of reach. With her, you'd finally start living. With her, you'd break free from your routine. With her, you'd become someone worth knowing. He pointed his stick at the tea master. But here's the cruel joke. This future self can never exist because it's always in the future. Even if she walked through that door right now, the real her could never match the fantasy you've built. You're not in love with her, you're addicted to the possibility of who you might become. The tea master's hands were shaking again, but not from her memory, from recognition. So what do I do? He asked desperately. How do I stop creating these false selves? The master smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. First, you must understand why your mind creates them. These false selves aren't your enemy, they're trying to protect you from something. The question is, what are you so afraid of being without them? He let that sink in before continuing. The moment you truly see a false self for what it is, just thoughts, just mental fabrication, just smoke, it begins to lose its power. But seeing isn't enough. You must also understand the second cause of your attachment. Because she didn't appear in your life randomly. She came to teach you something you've been running from for years. The master picked up his teacup, took a slow sip, and prepared to reveal the second truth that would complete the tea master's understanding. The master reached into a wooden box and pulled out 3 items, a mirror, a brush, and blank paper. Before we discuss the second cause, you must see clearly for yourself. Intellectual understanding is worthless without direct experience. I'm going to guide you through 3 exercises. They will be uncomfortable. Do them anyway. Exercise 1, the mirror meditation. Sit in front of this mirror. Look at your own eyes. Now bring her to mind. Watch what happens to your face. See how it changes. That hope, that longing, that aliveness, where is it coming from? Her or you? The tea master sat before the mirror, reluctant at first. As he thought of her, he watched his own face transform. His eyes softened, his mouth almost smiled. His entire expression became younger, more alive. Now the master instructed, keep looking, but let her image fade. Watch your face return to its default state. This is who you are without the fantasy. Can you accept this face, this reality? The difference was stark. Without her in his mind, his face looked empty. Years of chosen numbness stared back at him. Exercise 2, the 2-column truths. Take this paper, draw a line down the middle. On the left, write what actually happened that day. Facts only. On the right, write what you've added in your mind. Left column. Woman entered tea house. I spilled tea. We sat in silence. She asked one question. She left money. She departed. Right column. She was meant for me, connection beyond words. She understood my soul. Should have asked her to stay, life-changing encounter. We'll find her again. Everything would be different if. Now I'll tell you a story. A painter fell in love with the moon. Every night he painted her hundreds of paintings, each more beautiful than the last. One night, a thief stole all his paintings. The painter was devastated until his teacher asked, "Did the thief steal the moon?" Close your eyes. All your thoughts about her, your imagined conversations, your fantasies, your what-ifs, these are paintings. If I could steal all these thoughts from your mind right now, would I have stolen her? Or would I have stolen something you created? The tea master's eyes flew open. I would still have the actual memory of her. Would you? Strip away what you've added, remove the meaning you've imposed, delete the future you've imagined. What's left? A long silence. A woman who asked a question and left. Exactly. Everything else is your painting, and you've fallen in love with your own artwork. Now, you might be thinking, this is just some old story about a tea master. What does this have to do with my life? Everything. Let me show you how this same pattern plays out in your world every single day. The social media trap. Think about the last time you couldn't stop checking someone's Instagram or Facebook. You told yourself you were just seeing what they're up to. But be honest, were you looking at them, or were you looking for yourself in their life? Every photo they post with someone new, you imagine yourself in that frame. Every story they share from a place you've never been, you create a version where you're there with them. You're not stalking their life, you're stalking a fantasy of your life that includes them. The tea master had one meeting. You have hundreds of digital encounters, each one feeding the false self. Each view, each check, each late-night scroll is like pouring water on a plant that's poisoning you. The last seen torture. How many times have you checked when they were last seen on WhatsApp? Watched those 2 blue check marks, waiting for a reply? Each time you check, you're not just looking at an app. You're asking, am I worth responding to? Would the idealized version of me get a faster reply? The Buddha would have recognized this instantly. It's the second arrow again. First arrow, they didn't reply immediately. Second arrow, the story you tell yourself about why, and the 100 times you check, hoping the story will change. The dating app delusion. You match with someone. One good conversation, maybe one date, and suddenly your mind writes an entire movie. You see weekend trips, inside jokes, meeting their friends, becoming the person who finally understands them. All from what a few messages and staged photos. This is exactly what happened to the tea master, except his took 10 minutes. Yours might take 10 messages. Same false self, same projection, same addiction to potential rather than reality. The modern monastery. Here's what's even more relevant. Just like the tea master hid in his tea house for years, we hide in our own modern monasteries. Some hide in work, I'm too busy for relationships. Some hide in casual connections, I don't do serious. Some hide in the past, no one compares to my ex. But it's all the same pattern, using isolation to avoid the risk of real connection. Then when someone breaks through our walls even slightly, we create an entire fantasy because we're starving for what we've denied ourselves. The 3 questions for today. Before we move on, ask yourself, who is living rent-free in your mind right now? Don't lie, we all have someone. Maybe it's an ex, maybe it's someone who rejected you, maybe it's someone you met briefly who felt different. When you think of them, what version of yourself do you see? Not who you are, but who you imagine you'd be with them. How many hours this week have you spent in imaginary conversations with them versus real conversations with people actually in your life? The master looked at the tea master with infinite compassion. You see, your suffering isn't unique, it's universal. The only difference is that you're ready to see it, and seeing it is the first step to freedom. The master poured fresh tea, his movements deliberate and mindful. Now we come to the second cause, why she appeared in your life at this precise moment. To understand this, you must first correct your understanding of karma. He set down the pot with a gentle click. Most people think karma is cosmic punishment or reward. You were bad, so bad things happen. You were good, so good things come. This is children's thinking. Real karma is far more profound and practical. The tea master leaned forward, eager to understand. Karma in Zen means action and consequence, but not in the way you think. It's not about moral judgment, it's about patterns. Every action creates a pattern in your consciousness. Repeat the pattern enough, and it becomes a groove in your mind. The groove attracts similar experiences until you learn to create a different pattern. I don't understand, the tea master admitted. Years ago, someone left you. What pattern did you create in response? I chose to never feel that pain again. I chose emptiness. Exactly. And for years, that pattern worked. You pushed away every connection before it could deepen. You forgot faces before they could matter. You created a groove of avoidance so deep that life itself couldn't touch you. But here's what you didn't understand. The master struck his staff on the ground. The universe is a teacher, not a judge. When you have an unlearned lesson, life will present it again and again in different forms until you're ready to learn. The woman who left you years ago brought one lesson. You refused it, so life waited patiently until you were ripe. Look at yourself, 67 years old, alone, going through motions without meaning. You'd become a ghost haunting your own life. You were finally empty enough, desperate enough, broken enough to learn. So life sent another teacher, the woman in the tea house. Precisely, same lesson, different teacher. And notice how perfectly orchestrated it was. She appeared exactly as you were most vulnerable, elderly, alone, having achieved the perfect emptiness you thought you wanted. She asked the one question that would shatter everything. Why do we remember some people forever? The master smiled with ancient knowing. This wasn't coincidence. This was karma, not as punishment, but as curriculum. Every person who gets stuck in our mind is there to teach us something we've been avoiding. The universe doesn't waste such precision. Your obsession with her isn't a mistake or weakness, it's your soul's way of saying, pay attention. This is the lesson you came here to learn, but what if I'm not ready? The fact that she appeared means you're ready. The question is, will you learn the lesson this time, or will you need another years and another teacher? The master stood and walked to an ancient scroll hanging on the wall. It depicted 7 streams flowing into one river. Every person who becomes lodged in our mind brings one of 7 universal lessons. These aren't random, they're precisely what your soul needs for its evolution. Let me show you which one she brought. The first lesson, impermanence. Some people enter our lives to teach us that everything changes. They come like lightning and leave like morning mist. Their very transience is the teaching. The master looked directly at the tea master. Think she appeared for 10 minutes and vanished. Isn't this the same lesson from years ago? Someone you thought would stay forever left. Someone you met briefly haunts you still. Both teaching the same truth. Nothing is permanent, and our suffering comes from demanding that it be. But why does it hurt so much if it's just impermanence? Because you're not learning the lesson, you're fighting it. Impermanence isn't cruel, it's what makes each moment precious. The cherry blossoms are beautiful precisely because they fall. The second lesson, the nature of suffering. Others come to reveal how we create our own suffering. Tell me in these 3 months, who has caused you more pain, her for leaving or you for replaying it 10,000 times? The tea master's shoulders sagged. Me, it's all been me. This is the deepest teaching on suffering. Life shoots the first arrow, separation, loss, death, but we shoot the second, third, 100th arrow ourselves. She taught you this in 10 minutes. You've been studying it for 3 months. The third lesson, the illusion of self. Some people shatter our idea of who we think we are. You spent years believing you were a man of detachment, above desire, beyond need. 10 minutes with her revealed the truth. That was just a performance. The real you, the one desperate for connection, was waiting underneath. So my entire life has been a lie? No, it's been a protection, but protection can become prison. She came to show you that the self you're protecting doesn't even exist. The detached tea master is just a role. Who are you without the costume? The fourth lesson, letting go. The master picked up a cup, then opened his hand. It shattered on the floor. Some people come to teach us release. But notice, I didn't throw the cup. I simply stopped holding it. This is different from pushing away. You've spent years pushing people away. That's not letting go, that's holding on with reversed hands. True letting go means opening the fist, not clenching it differently. The fifth lesson, unconditional love. Perhaps the hardest lesson, learning to love without possessing. Can you wish her happiness wherever she is? Can you be grateful for those 10 minutes without needing 10 more? This is love without attachment, wanting nothing from the person, only goodness for them. But I don't even know where she is. Perfect. Then your love can't be contaminated by trying to get something back. Every time you think of her, instead of wanting, try thanking. Instead of grasping, try blessing. Transform obsession into compassion. The sixth lesson, present moment awareness. Notice how she pulls you from now. When you think of her, where does your mind go? To that afternoon or to imagined futures? But where is life happening? Now, only now, exactly. Some people come to teach us that we're missing our actual life by living in memories or fantasies. Every moment you spend in mental conversation with her is a moment you're not present for the real world. She's teaching you to come home to now. The seventh lesson, the nature of true love. The Master saved this for last, his voice becoming tender. The final lesson is the hardest to accept. Some people come to teach us what love really is by showing us what it isn't. You think you love her, but you don't even know her name. You love the feeling she triggered, the possibility she represented, the self she reflected. This isn't love, it's projection. He let that sink in before continuing. True love sees the other as they are, not as a mirror for our needs. True love doesn't require presence or response. It simply flows like sunlight, expecting nothing back. She came to teach you the difference between love and need, between connection and attachment, between meeting someone and using someone to meet yourself. The Master returned to his cushion. So which lesson is yours? Or perhaps she brings multiple teachings. The Tea Master was quiet for a long moment. All of them. She's teaching me all of them. Years of avoiding these lessons, and they all arrived in one person in 10 minutes. Now you begin to understand karma, not punishment, curriculum, not cruelty, precision. The universe knew exactly what teacher to send, exactly when you'd be ready to learn. Your obsession isn't weakness. It's your soul insisting you finally graduate from the lessons you've been avoiding your entire life. The Master pulled out a piece of paper and drew 7 boxes. Understanding the lessons intellectually is useless. You must identify which one is yours, personally, precisely. Here's how to discover what someone is teaching you. The 10 questions method. Answer these without thinking, first response only. When you think of them, what emotion comes first, longing or fear? What were you avoiding before they appeared? If they returned tomorrow, what would scare you most? What quality in them do you wish you had? What promise did you make to yourself after they left? In your fantasies, who needs who more? What would you have to accept if you never saw them again? What pattern from your past repeated with them? If they're a mirror, what are they reflecting? What would you lose if you stopped thinking about them? The Tea Master answered rapidly, surprising himself with the honesty. Now look at your answers, the Master instructed. The lesson isn't in what happened, it's in your response to what happened. Your patterns reveal your curriculum, the letter you'll never send. Tonight, write them a letter. Pour out everything, your anger, your longing, your questions, your gratitude. Write until you have nothing left, then burn it. But before you do, read it as if you're them reading about you. What would you learn about the writer? What would their pain teach you? The Master's eyes grew intense. The most important part. At the end, write what you think they came to teach you, not what you wanted from them, what they taught you about yourself. Be specific. You taught me that I'm still afraid of. You showed me I haven't accepted. You revealed that I'm pretending. The empty chair, meditation. Place 2 cushions facing each other. Sit on one, imagine them on the other. But here's the twist, don't talk to them. Listen. What would they say to you if they could see your pain? What would they want you to understand? Often we already know our lesson, we just don't want to hear it. The Tea Master shifted uncomfortably. What if I identify the wrong lesson? Impossible. Your soul knows exactly why someone appeared. The only mistake is refusing to look. Even if you identify a surface lesson first, it will lead you deeper. Start anywhere. The thread will unravel itself. But what if the lesson is too painful? The master smiled compassionately. The lesson is never more painful than the resistance to learning it. You've spent 3 months in agony. How much worse could understanding be? Besides, he pointed to the scroll on the wall. Once you identify your lesson, you can begin the real work, actually learning it. Which brings us to the 4 steps of liberation. Before we discuss the path to freedom, let me tell you about another student who faced this same challenge. It might help you see your situation more clearly. There was once a brilliant monk named Ikkyu. You may have heard of him. Wild, unconventional, writing poems about sake and brothels. But what most people don't know is why he became that way. As a young monk, Ikkyu fell deeply in love with a blind singer who came to perform at the temple. One night together, then she left to continue her travels. Ikkyu was destroyed. He couldn't meditate, couldn't eat, couldn't function. His mind played her songs endlessly. His teacher found him one night standing by the lake, ready to drown himself. The teacher asked, "What would killing yourself accomplish?" "I would stop thinking of her. Would you? Or would you die with her name on your lips, making the attachment eternal?" The teacher then said something that changed everything. Water doesn't suffer when it takes the shape of its container. It doesn't suffer when poured out. It simply flows. Your love is like water. It took a shape for one night. Now let it flow into new forms instead of freezing it in time. Ikkyu understood. He wrote his first real poem that night. The blind singer's voice echoes in the temple bell, but the bell is empty. He never forgot her, but he learned to let his love flow freely rather than trying to contain it. His unconventional wisdom, his wild freedom, it all came from learning that love isn't possession, it's flow. The tea master's eyes were wet. Did he ever see her again? Does it matter? The master responded. He saw something better, the true nature of love itself, and that teaching made him one of the greatest Zen poets who ever lived. Now, shall we discuss how you can transform your frozen love into flowing water? The master stood and lit 4 candles, placing them in a square pattern. Liberation has 4 steps. Skip 1 and you remain trapped. The first is Chan Ki letter 1 EBF N right view. This isn't about positive thinking or forcing yourself to see things differently. It's about seeing what's actually there versus what your mind has created. He handed the tea master a small card with 3 phrases written on it. The 3 daily recognitions. Every morning, as soon as the thought of her arises, and it will arise, speak these truths out loud. First, this is not them. This is a story I'm telling myself about them. Say it even if you don't believe it. Your mind has confused imagination with memory so completely that you need to manually separate them. Every thought you have about her is now 20% memory, 80% fabrication. Acknowledge this ratio. The tea master read the phrases, his hands trembling slightly. Second, I am not missing them. I am missing a feeling I had about myself. This cuts through the illusion. You're not addicted to her, you're addicted to dopamine your brain released when you imagined being different. She was just the trigger, not the drug. But it feels so real. Of course it does. Your brain doesn't distinguish between real and imagined experience. When you fantasize conversations with her, the same neural pathways fire as if it actually happened. You're literally creating false memories. The recognition practice breaks this cycle. Third, They are a teacher, not an answer. This shifts you from wanting to learning. Every time your mind says, I need them, correct it. I need to learn what they're teaching. It's a fundamental reorientation from grasping to growing. The naming practice. Additionally, whenever obsessive thoughts arise, name them immediately. Thinking, fantasizing, remembering, creating. Don't judge, just name. Like noting raindrops, you don't stop the rain, but you stop believing you are the rain. The master demonstrated, his voice calm and matter of fact, remembering her face, thinking. Imagining conversation, creating. Feeling lonely, feeling. See, you create distance between yourself and the experience. You become the observer, not the victim. How long before this works? Wrong question. It works immediately. You just won't feel the effects immediately. Every recognition is a small cut to the rope binding you. You don't feel the rope weakening until suddenly, one day, it snaps. Most people give up before that day. What if I forget to do it? Then you'll suffer more until you remember. Pain is a strict teacher, but a fair one. The more it hurts, the more motivated you'll become to practice. Your obsession itself will become your reminder to wake up. The master moved to the second candle, its flame casting dancing shadows on the wall. Recognition alone won't free you. You must actively learn what they came to teach. This is Chan Tu Dai right intention. Not intention to forget them, but intention to graduate from the class they're teaching. He pulled out a worn journal, its pages filled with years of entries. The learning journal method. Every night for 21 days, write 3 pages. No less, structure them like this. Page 1, what happened today when I thought of them? Be specific. At 9:15 a.m. while making tea, I imagined showing her my garden. Notice patterns. Do thoughts come at specific times? Triggered by certain activities? Your obsession has a rhythm, learn it. The tea master took the empty journal offered to him. Page 2, what am I really seeking? Go deeper than I want them back. What feeling are you chasing? Safety, excitement, validation, worth. Write until you hit the raw truth. One student discovered she didn't miss her ex, she missed feeling chosen. Another realized he was addicted to the drama, not the person. What if I don't know? Then write I don't know repeatedly until you do. The mind hates repetition. It will give you the truth just to stop the boredom. I've seen it happen hundreds of times. Page 3, how is this pattern familiar? When have you felt this before? With whom? Your current obsession is never your first. It's the latest version of an old wound. Find the original and you'll understand why this one cuts so deep. The insight board. The master pointed to a board covered in small papers. After each week, extract one core insight. Write it clearly. Pin it where you'll see it daily. Not inspirational quotes, your own realizations. I use fantasy to avoid present loneliness. I'm more attached to potential than reality. I prefer imaginary relationships because they can't disappoint me. This feels like too much work. Exactly, the master's eyes lit up. That resistance is information. You'd rather suffer than study. You'd rather stay stuck than see clearly. Why? Because learning the lesson means changing, and change is death to the ego. Your resistance shows you're on the right path. He leaned forward intently. Here's the secret. The moment you truly understand your lesson, not intellectually, but in your bones, the obsession begins to dissolve. Not because you forced it, but because there's nothing left to learn. The universe doesn't waste energy. Once you graduate, the teacher disappears. The master moved to the third candle, placing his palms together in a gesture of prayer. Now comes the alchemy, transforming poison into medicine. This is Chan Ni letter 1EC7M, right mindfulness, not pushing thoughts away, but transforming their very nature. The meta, transformation. When their face arises in your mind, and it will, probably within the next minute, don't fight it. Instead, immediately begin this practice. Breathe in, see their face clearly. Breathe out, may you be happy. Breathe in, feel the longing. Breathe out, may you be free from suffering. Breathe in, notice the grasping. Breathe out, may you find peace wherever you are. Breathe in, acknowledge the pain. Breathe out, thank you for the lesson. The tea master looked skeptical, but I don't want them to be happy with someone else. Exactly, that's how you know it's working. Real love wants happiness for the other regardless of our involvement. What you're feeling isn't love, it's possession. This practice transforms possession into compassion, attachment into genuine care. The energy redirect. Obsessive thoughts are energy. Instead of letting that energy spiral into fantasy, redirect it immediately. When you catch yourself in mental conversation with them, stop. Use that exact energy to do 5 minutes of walking meditation, write a gratitude letter to someone actually in your life, perform an act of kindness for a stranger, create something with your hands. You're not suppressing the energy, you're channeling it. Like redirecting a river to irrigate fields instead of flooding villages. What if I forget and spiral anyway? Then you begin again, and again, and again. This isn't about perfection, it's about practice. Every time you transform even one obsessive thought into compassionate action, you weaken the pattern. Remember, you're rewiring years of habits. Be patient with yourself. The transformation is happening even when you can't see it. The master lit the fourth candle, completing the square of light. The final step is Chan D-stroke letter 1 ECBNH, right concentration. Not forcing your mind to forget, but anchoring it so deeply in the present that the past loses its grip. The 5-4-3-2-1 grounding practice. When your mind drifts to them and catch it quickly, immediately engage all your senses. Name 5 things you can see right now. Not tomorrow, not in memory, right now. The crack in the wall, the way light hits your hand, details that exist only in this moment. Name 4 things you can physically feel: your feet on the ground, air on your skin, the weight of your clothes. Bring your body back to now. Name 3 sounds in this moment. Even silence has sound: your breathing, distant traffic, the house settling. Anchor your ears in the present. Name 2 scents: tea cooling, wood aging, rain approaching. Let your nose root you here. Name 1 thing you're grateful for in this exact moment. Not about them, not about the past. Something real, present, alive now, creating sacred anchors. Then establish daily rituals that demand complete presence. Morning tea ceremony, each movement deliberate, no room for wandering thoughts. Walking meditation, counting steps, feeling earth, being here. Evening gratitude, 3 real things from today, not yesterday, not tomorrow. These aren't distractions, they're replacements. You're substituting the habit of mental time travel with the habit of presence. The tea master nodded slowly. So I'm not trying to forget. Forgetting is impossible and unnecessary. You're learning to live where life actually exists now. The past can visit, but it can't move in. When you're truly present, Memories become like old photographs. You can look at them without falling into them. That's freedom. The master's eyes grew distant, as if seeing beyond the present moment. Let me tell you how the story ends. 1 year later, to the day September 15th, 5 p.m. The tea master was preparing for the evening, hands steady, mind clear. The door slid open. He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. She walked in, the same woman, but everything was different. The tea master looked up, truly saw her for the first time. Not through the lens of fantasy, not as a projection of his needs. Just a woman, tired, lines around her eyes that spoke of grief. "I've been thinking about you," she said quietly, "all year." The tea master poured tea with hands that didn't tremble. "Please sit. I need to tell you something," she continued. "The day I came here, it was my husband's funeral. I didn't know where else to go. When I saw your hands shake, I thought, here's someone who understands loss." The tea master nodded. "I do, and you taught me about it." "I taught you?" "Yes. You asked why we remember some people forever. I spent a year learning the answer. We remember those who wake us up. You woke me from a long sleep." She smiled through tears. "And you showed me that grief can become grace. Your shaking hands gave me permission to be human." They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who had been teachers for each other without knowing it. "Will you come back?" he asked. "When I need tea and truth," she replied. She left again, but this time the tea master felt only gratitude. No grasping, no fantasy. No need to make her mean more than she was, which was already everything. A teacher, a mirror, a moment of grace. He was free, not because he forgot her, because he finally understood her. The master let the story's ending resonate before speaking again. Notice what freedom actually looked like. Not forgetting, he recognized her immediately. Not indifference, he was glad to see her. Freedom was seeing her clearly for the first time. He traced a circle in the air with his finger. For a year, she lived in his mind as a fantasy, a projection, a symbol of everything he'd lost. But when she returned, he saw the truth, just a grieving woman who needed tea. The real her was so much simpler and so much more beautiful than the ghost he'd created. This is the deepest teaching. We don't need to forget people to be free from them. We need to remember them accurately, strip away what we've added, remove what we've projected, see them as they are, not as characters in our story. The master's voice grew tender. In Buddhism, we call this suchness, things as they are, not as we wish, fear, remember, or imagine, just as they are. The tea master's liberation wasn't losing his memory of her, it was losing his illusions about her. He looked directly at his student. When you can think of someone with gratitude instead of grasping, with clarity instead of confusion, with love instead of need, that's not forgetting, that's awakening. The memory remains, but the chains dissolve. You remember them, but you remember yourself more. Now we return to you. Yes, you listening to this at 2 a.m. or during your commute, or while trying to distract yourself from thinking about them. The person living in your mind right now isn't your prison. They're your invitation to wake up. Every obsessive thought is a bell ringing. Time to learn, time to grow, time to discover who you really are. Tonight, before you sleep, try this. Say their name out loud, once. Then say, "Thank you for the lesson. I'm ready to learn." Don't expect instant freedom. Expect to finally begin. Start with one practice from today. Just one, the morning recognition. This is a story I'm telling myself, the journal. 3 pages of honest truth, the metta breath. May you be happy, may you be free, the present moment anchor. 5-4-3-2-1. You don't need to forget them. You need to remember who you are: whole, complete, lacking nothing. They didn't take anything from you. They revealed what you've been searching for in others instead of finding in yourself. Your liberation starts with a single question. Are you ready to stop being a prisoner and become a student? The door is open, the path is clear, the teacher has appeared. The only question left is, will you finally learn the lesson? May you find peace. May you find freedom. May you find yourself.